to Beyond the Cowl. You have got me, Jo, today, and we are going to be making a scarf from triangles. So if you don't have any triangles and you wish to make some to make this scarf up with me, look at the playlist that we have for triangle patterns. They are on the description, they are on the playlist, which is in the description box below, for the triangle patterns. We had 9, I think we had 9 triangle patterns. This was the single crochet triangle. And we had lots of other triangles that had sort of flower centres. Some were quite open and airy, some were closed in like this one and more solid. So you can literally use any triangle you like for this, as long as it is equilateral. So all 3 sides are the same length, okay? All 3 sides are the same length. That's what you need for this. To make it into a straight long scarf. So I am using these. I've been making these up especially for my scarf, ready for the winter, which actually it is May, but I'm in the UK, and yesterday was a mixture of bright warm sun and hail and wind. Today is very dull and it's like a sort of November day today. So I could say this is ready for next winter, but you know, I could be using it tomorrow. Who knows? So I've got a selection of triangles here. Mine are all in the 2 colours, the grey and peach. But you could use, you know, a whole combination of colours, whatever you fancy. So have a look at triangles. If you haven't made any already, have a look at the playlist below for the triangles, and you will need to make some. Okay. So the size of your triangle, the size of your scarf will depend on the size of your triangle. So if you have, now this is roughly a 6-inch triangle. I think it's probably more like 5 3/4 inches or something, 5 1/2. But they are all the same. I've made them all to exactly the same pattern. So the height of your triangle will determine the width of your scarf. Okay, so if you want a very wide scarf, then you will need to make a bigger triangle. And this particular pattern, you can just keep working because you work from the point upwards. So you can just keep growing it and growing it and growing it, and you could have sort of an 8-inch square triangle if you like. So this is, okay, so this is about 5 1/2, 5 3/4 inches on this side. And the height is slightly shorter than that, of 5 inches. So that's how wide my scarf will be. I don't like necessarily a really wide scarf, so this is going to be the width of my scarf. Okay, so the height will determine the width, and let me just move those out of the way. The width of your triangle will determine the length of your scarf. Okay, so I'm going to say 6 inches for these. They're not quite 6 inches, but I'm going to count them as 6. So, for instance, if you had 10 6-inch triangles along a side, you would have a 60-inch scarf. Okay, 10 6 is 60. So you'd have a 60-inch scarf if you had 10 triangles in a row. Okay. Obviously, this row is not going to make a triangle, or it would be like floppy, like bunting, and we are doing bunting this month as well on Wednesdays. Check the playlist out for that. You will pop ones in the opposite direction on this side, okay? So this little row I've got here would be 6, 12, 18. So 18 on this side, and it would be 12 on that side, okay? So determine the length you want your scarf to be, and then make your triangles to fit. So if you want a 60-inch scarf, you will need, for instance, you will need 10 6-inch triangles plus 5 or 6 for the opposite side. Okay. Now my triangles are all in this, they've all been done in the same pattern, but your triangles can vary as much as you like. You can vary the pattern, so you can vary, you know, the style of triangle. You can have some closed in ones, some open lacy ones, completely up to you. but you will need the sides to be fairly straight for joining together, okay? Unless depending on what joining technique you use. Now, when you lay your triangles out, there are two basic ways of having your layout for your scarves. So I'm going to see if I can move the camera up so that I can fit more triangles on here, okay? Okay, so you can have your scarf where you have both of your short ends, so this side and this side. You can have them both where they go in the same direction like this, okay? So I've got both on this side. So you will have one extra on this side, okay? So this is what I'm going to call the bottom edge. So you've got 3 on this side. Obviously this is not really a scarf size, but just to show you. So you will have 3 more, so you have 1 more on this side, and then on the top side you'll have, I've got 2. So if you want your short edges to be both going in the same, then you need 1 more on one side, okay? And it would be just the same if I did it this way, okay? It's just the same but in reverse. So I've got 3 on the top and 2 on the bottom, exactly the same. So that's one way. The other way is to have it where, actually if I pop 4 on here, okay, so this is the way where you have exactly the same amount on both sides. So I've got 3 on the top, 1, 2, 3, and I've got 3 on the bottom. And this one, if the camera can fit it all in, you've got both sides here are going in a slant, okay? They're going in the same direction, okay? So this one here is going across, and this one here, which is not quite fitting on, is going across as well. So they're both going in a slant. So actually if I take those away, you can probably see it here. So this time they're going the opposite way. So I've got 2 and 2, and they're both going like this, okay? So you can have it like that, or you can have it like so, where they go the same, okay? And the last thing before you actually start to do anything with attaching these is you need to decide on your design. So are you just going to take them at random, however they come out, and just take them at random and pop them together? Okay, are you going to do that, or do you want them in a certain way? So choose your layout, how you want it to be. But you know, think of what's going to be at the ends or whatever, and choose your layout. And then when you've got your desired layout, so if this was my desired layout, then you just want to pick up your triangles in order. Now I like to do it so they do sit alternately. So I pick up this one and then that one, and you can see they are overlapping a bit like a star, and then pick up the next one and that's overlapping in the opposite direction, and then the next one, and then the next one. Okay, so they are all going in alternate directions in a nice pile, so I can just take the first one, take the second one, join them together, and then I can take the next one, and so on. So make sure they're in order, and if you need to stop at any time, just pop them into a bag or something, pop them aside somewhere where they're not going to get mixed up. The cat's not going to pull them away, or the kids aren't going to play with them, okay? And that's it. So the only other thing to say is to join them, you can use any joining technique you like, okay? You can use a stitch method, you can use a crochet method, it is entirely up to you. So I'm going to show you one way today, but I will pop another playlist down at the bottom, and that is for joining techniques, and there are, I think there's 8 there. There's a variety of sewing and crochet techniques, so have a look at those and see which you fancy, and then go ahead and we're going to start joining them. So I'm just going to decide on my layout now, and then I will be back with you in just a jiffy. Okay, I have my stack of triangles ready. I don't have enough for a scarf, but I'm going to show you the start of making one end of it, and then I'll just continue on to the other end. Okay, and I'm going to use a slightly darker shade of grey than what I have here, because I don't have a huge amount of this light grey left, and I want to make more triangles with it. So I'm using a different colour, a different shade, partly just for contrast as well. And partly because I don't have enough. So I'm going to use the baseball stitch join, and there will be a more in-depth tutorial on that if you look in the playlist in the description and look for that baseball stitch join, but I will show you very briefly how to do it now. And the only other thing is, depending on what join you're using will depend on whether you want to sew your ends in on your triangles first or later. If you're doing a single crochet join, you could work over your ends. So let me find one with an end here. Here we go. So if you're doing a single crochet join, you could just crochet over that end, and that would be fine. But I am doing the baseball stitch join, which will show the ends and will be harder to sew in the ends afterwards. So I'm using 3 triangles that have them already sewn in. So I've got this triangle, and this is the right way up, and this one's the right way up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be joining these 2 sides. So let me move these out of the way. So I'm going to be joining these 2 sides here, okay? So I want the right sides together, so I'm going to pop that over, okay? And then I'm going to be working on this side here. So I have a nice chunky needle that I've thread with the yarn. I've thread quite a nice long length, so I won't have to keep joining it. And as I hold these towards me, remember I've put the right sides together, so I'm looking at the outer sides, or the backs. I mean, a lot of these are quite reversible. If you sew in your ends neatly, some of these triangles are quite reversible anyway. So what I'm going to do is take my yarn and my needle, and I'm going to go into this very first stitch of the back triangle. So we're going to call this the back one, and this is the front triangle, okay? And we're going to call this the inside, okay? So the parts that are together is the inside. So I'm going to go into the first stitch of the back triangle from the inside to the outside, and then going to pull that through, and I'm going to leave a nice long tail for sewing in, and then come back to the front triangle, and again from the inside to the outside, so coming towards yourself, I'm going to pop my needle into that first stitch, okay? Pull that through. Now these stitches will be visible, these are visible stitches, okay? So you want to make them as neat as possible, and then I'm going to go into the back triangle, and I'm going to go down a row and into the next stitch, which is actually the side of a stitch. I'm stitching the sides together here. So I've made it so that I'm stitching the sides together, so these sort of raw edges, and then this neat edge where the last row was made will be along the long edge, okay? So I've gone back into the back one, and then I'm going to come over into the next row on the front triangle, okay? Pull that through, and then I'm going to go over the top and into the next row on the back triangle. So just look at where you went in last time. You might have to have a bit of a peek. Go into there, pull that yarn through, and then I'm going to go come back towards me into the triangle on the top or at the front, back over and into the next stitch or row on the back triangle. If you might have a triangle here that's got actual stitches, and that makes it a lot easier to find the stitches rather than the rows, but hey. So I'm going to go come back towards me in this front triangle, pull that through, and then back over the top and through from the middle into the back one, and then you just keep doing this, okay, alternating the back and the front, the back and the front. So where are we? I'm at the back, so I'm going to come to the front. And over to the back. And over to the front. Come back through. And again over to the back. And to the front. Okay, so you're just going to continue that all the way along, and you can see some of these first stitches I did are quite loose, so you can just use your needle, go along and tighten them up back towards your tail. Just tighten them up, just popping the needle underneath and pulling them through. Go in the right order. There we go. Oops. And to that one. Pull that through. Okay, so this is how it looks. Bring this to the camera. This is how it's starting to look on the peach and on the grey. You can just see those stitches there. If I open it out, pop it down there. I'm just going to zoom the camera in. So there we go. I probably should have used a more contrasting yarn for you to be able to see this stitch really, but there we go. So it's sort of going in a crisscross, sort of going down one way and then down, 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 like so. Okay, so just going like this, and then you're going to do that all the way down, and it's pretty much the same front to back, pretty much the same. It's quite reversible, this. And just gives a nice finish, gives a little bit of play between them depending on how tightly you sew those. So I'm going to work all the way down. So I'm going to work down to this point, and then I'll show you what I do to do the next part. Okay, so I have reached the end of my triangles, and this is what I have. You can see this. I know it's fairly, sorry, not easy to see the colour. I apologise for that. You can probably see it there. And you can see it's quite reversible. So you can see these stitches. It's not exactly a feature of my work, but it's not hidden either. So there we go. So that is where I've reached now, this point. Now, to save having to fasten off and rejoin, which is why I've got quite a long piece of thread, what I'm going to do, so this one with the grey base was my first, so I'm going to turn this around. If I show you here, this is how I want my triangles to be. Okay, so this is my first one, and then my second one was this one, and then I'm going to come back in with this grey. So I had the right sides together like so. Okay, so this is what I had, and now I've finished here. So what I'm going to do is open this out, and then I'm going to put this triangle, sorry, over this way with those right sides together. Okay, that's one way of knowing that you've got the right side and it's all going in the right direction. Okay, rather than me starting to go off this way. So I'm going to bring this one in here, fold that over, so I now have the right sides together. Bring this up, and from where I finished here, I am going to go over, oops, and I'm going to pop a stitch. Actually, I'm just going to pop one in this bit here just to cover the point. You can see I've just got that one little stitch there. Okay, and then I'm going to go into the triangle behind. I think I might have just called it a square. From doing those 365 squares last year, I just got squares on the brain. Okay, so this one's now the back and this one's the front. Okay, so you're just going to come straight back over and work as you did before. And if you're crocheting, doing a crochet joint, you can do it exactly the same. You can just continue along, just add the next triangle and keep going. And that is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to add one more triangle after this, just so you can see how it works. I'm just make sure if you see a loose stitch, depending on what join you're using, but if you find a loose stitch, just make sure that you tighten it before too long. Okay, so I'm just going to continue this up the side, and once I've joined this one, I will come back and talk to you about the next part. Okay, so I've sewn up this other side and I've just fastened it off, secured that, and then I'm going to weave in the ends afterwards as neatly as possible, so that this can be, it won't have to worry about, you know, whether it's the front showing or the back. So that's what I have so far, and I will just continue to add onto this side. Okay, I'll just continue to add onto this side. So the next thing is deciding whether you want to do a border on your scarf or not, whether you want to edge, do a border along this edge. Okay, and that's entirely optional. I mean, the good thing about this is these straight sides, your triangles will have a finished neat edge anyway, because the sides that I'm sewing, and hopefully you are too, the sides that I'm sewing together are what I would class as the raw edges. They're the edges of rows. If you've done a triangle where you've got stitches all the way around, some of the triangles we've done had a round of single crochet or double crochet, so all your sides will be neat, and that'd be great. But I've purposely sewn these end of row sides together to hide those in the middle and finish with nice neat sides. Okay, so you can choose to put a border on this or not. I'm debating on whether to use the same grey and do a crab stitch border. Now again, another playlist, in the description box below I will pop the playlist on there for our borders and edgings. Again, we've got about 8 of those, some very fancy, some plain, and all fairly simple to make. There's a nice pom-pom edging actually, which sort of goes in loops, and each one has a pom-pom, a little tiny pom-pom on the end, so that would make a really nice feature on a scarf, or just on the end of your scarf. So for this, these slanted sides will be your end of the scarf, so you could do a little pom-pom edge on the end. That would look really, really lovely. So I'm debating on what I'm going to do for my border, so I'm not actually going to do any of my border today, but do have a look at that playlist and check those out. Or you might have a favourite border of your own you'd like to do, or just leave it with these straight neat edges, entirely up to you. So that's that. You could totally finish there. Well, not there, because that's not really a scarf, but you know what I mean. So the only other thing is a thing that's nice to finish scarves off with is, certainly if you've got a nice, you know, one of these straight long scarves, straight but slanted, is to add tassels or fringing. Now I'm going to show you how to make some fringing on here. So I'm just going to do some fringing on this edge. This is my end triangle. So I'm going to show you how to do some fringing on here, and then you can decide if you'd like to do that yourself. So in a change to what I previously said, I've decided I'm going to have the plain grey as my end. Just decided I'm going to have a plain grey end, and then I'm going to have a plain peach end to fit with my scarf being sort of half and half. And I'm going for the look of, just to show you in case you're wondering, I'm going for the look of having one edge all peach. So all these ones facing this way will have a peach edge, even if some of them are just a really thin edge like this one. So all these ones will have a peach edge, and the ones this side will all have a grey edge, and that's what I'm going for. So so I think I'm going to have the grey as my end, and then the other end will be a peach one. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to show you how to do some fringing on this grey edge. So for the purposes of the video, I'm going to do the bright pink yarn just so you can see exactly what I'm doing, not the grey, which I do apologise for that not being totally obvious there, not totally visible on those stitches. So decide how long you want your tassels to be. Now about 3 inches, 3-4 inches is a good length. Decide how long you want them to be, and then fold a piece of yarn slightly, take a piece of yarn that's slightly longer than double that length. So that's the length folded in half. You can see that. So I'm going to go to about here and then pop that. Okay, and then I'm going to cut that. And then I want another piece the same. Now you can make your fringe as, let me just move that out of the way so you can see it against the table. You can make your fringe as thick or as thin as you like. So you can use 2 pieces of yarn, you can use 3 pieces of yarn. Bear in mind when you fold it, each piece of fringe will have double strands, so you will actually have 4 strands if you do this, and I think that's a good amount, so I'm just going to do it with the 2 pieces of yarn. And also the other thing is you can make a really dense fringe by going into every stitch or every side of row, or you can stagger them and do them, sort of spread them out a bit. Okay, you can do it, you can totally measure it out and mark it with stitch markers, you can measure equal gaps, or you can just sort of eyeball it. So what I'm going to do is take my hook and have the wrong side facing you. So I'm going to turn this over. This is the wrong side of my work. Even though technically this is reversible, I'm just going to keep all the neatness on one side. So I'm just going to make one side definitely the front, just to keep it equal. Just to keep it sort of neat. So what I'm going to do for mine is I'm going to sort of fold this in half, find the centre, and I'm going to pop my hook in that centre stitch from back to front. So remember, I'm on the back of my work, and I'm going to hook over those 2 pieces of yarn like so, pull that through, and then I'm going to take all 4 pieces of yarn over the hook and pull through. Now that might be difficult with your hook, but I'm not using a big hook because I don't want to make this hole extra big. Okay, so I'm just going to try and pull it through with I think it's 4.5mm. If I use a chunky hook, I'll get a big hole there, and I don't want that. So then I'm going to pull this tight, but I'm going to hold the very base so that I don't, if I just pull it like this, I don't know if you can see, it's making this hole of the stitch. Well, it's the end of a row. You can see it's pulling that, making it bigger. So I'm just going to put my thumb on the base of this and pull it, well, on the top part that goes across, and pull it from that rather than pulling it from my stitch. Let's pull it tight, and then you can have these ends random like so, or you can snip them so they're all the same length, like you're giving it a haircut. And we want a straight haircut sometimes, not a wavy wobbly one. So I'm just going to cut those ends off, and that's why you make it slightly longer than you need, so you've got a bit left to snip off. And there is, so this is the right side now, and you can see that that bar is at the front. Camera focus on that. You can see that bar's at the front, and it all looks nice and neat. At the back, you've just got where it looped. It's still pretty neat, but this is definitely the front. Okay, so I'll show you that once more. So I'm measuring it from the piece I already have down here, but you could just make a whole load of these all at once. Okay, you could just make a whole load of strands, cut loads all at once, ready to go, rather than stopping and starting. Oops, not my fingers. Okay, so loop it in half, go to the back of your work, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this side in half. So I went to the middle of my triangle, and now I'm going to go to the middle of this top half, and it's about there, so roughly. Okay, pop your hook in, pull the yarn through all strands together, and then yarn over and pull the rest through, and then pull it tight without stretching the triangle too much. And then you can just snip off these ends. There we go. Okay, so I will continue, sorry, out of frame there, I will continue making this fringe down. I'll go sort of halfway here, and then I'll put one down at the end, one here, and then I'll just put them in the middle, wherever I feel it needs to go. So I'm going to finish these tassels, fringing, and show you how it looks. And there is my fringe. So just show you it like so, nice and wavy. Love it, love it. And I could have done them all in grey now, couldn't I? Because I'm going to have to take these all out and replace them with grey or peach, or you can mix up your colours, and you could I could have each tassel could be peach and grey, or peach grey, peach grey, peach grey. Hey, you can mix this up as much as you like, and I can't wait to see what you might do with this. Would love to see them. So I could have put some more in here if I wanted to be denser and fuller, but I quite like that look. We'll see when I get to the final piece. So that is how you can make your triangle scarf, or your scarf from triangles. So I think it's lovely, and it's unusual. Normally scarves finish with a straight edge, and I love it, love it. So yeah, feel free to mix this up as much as you like, and if you are part of our Facebook group, then do show us a photo in the album. The written pattern for this, or instructions, it's not really a pattern, they're in the Facebook group as well, Beyond the Cal, and there's a link to that in the description box below. So pop a picture in the Facebook group there. If you're not a member, then come along and join us. We bring a new pattern, design or stitch out on, we're doing a pattern or design on Mondays and Wednesdays. Wednesdays this month are bunting and garlands, and Fridays are stitch day, so we bring you a new stitch for using for a temperature blanket or a mood blanket, or any kind of project you want to make. So leave us a photo there, come and join us, and leave us a photo. I already said that, didn't I? And if you're not there, then Instagram, use hashtag Beyond the Cal, and we look forward to seeing your photos there. So if you've enjoyed this tutorial, you found it useful and helpful, I know there's lots of talking, but it's all about how we do it and blah blah blah. So if you've enjoyed this and found it helpful, then consider giving us a like, thumbs up, and yeah, happy hooking. Until next time, just keep hooking and don't let your tea get cold.